Good morning, everybody. Let's just make sure the chat box is working. Just as you're all joining, just let me know. You should be able to see a chat box there. Can you just put something in it, like testing, hello, a wave, an emoji, something? Let me know it's on. We always have fun with chat boxes, don't we? Good to see you all. Just so you know, you're all in the right place. We have a LinkedIn Masterclass today we're going to be going into. Kim, good to see you. John, good to see you. Today, I've kind of switched it up in terms of the content I'm going to be talking about. There's a load of new stuff going on LinkedIn, which I'm going to be going into a little bit of depth about. A lot of the stuff that's working for us, a lot of the stuff that used to work that isn't. And then at the end of today, we've got a question and answer type session where I'll answer anything that you've got. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give it like another 30 seconds or so. I don't tend to wait around too much of this. We've got probably about an hour and 10 minutes together, just going through the fundamentals of LinkedIn at the beginning, and then the three big elements that I want to focus in on today, which I'll share with you, are very much the things that made the biggest difference for us with our kind of approach to using this platform. Now, we use every social media platform. I'm not really attached to any specific one, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, podcasting, Facebook, TikTok, whatever. They all have like real potential if you know how to use them. And LinkedIn at the moment is just giving us such a good opportunity, which I'm going to be diving into. So what I'm going to do now, we know the chat box is working and we've got a number of you here today, is let's give this sharing screen a whirl. Right, let me bring that chat box back open. Can everybody see the pretty pink slide? Is it there? Can you see it? Let's just make sure before I get cracking. It is there. Good to see you, Franco. Amazing stuff. So if you've watched any of my stuff before, whether it's on LinkedIn, one of these masterclasses, or on YouTube, one of the things that I think I've made quite clear is that these social media platforms are mainly here for us to be able to generate attention. That's it, to be able to get awareness of who we are and what we do to then provide us with opportunity. Now, I've analyzed hundreds, if not thousands, of profiles over the last couple of years, and there have been some key significant things which I believe make the successful and the people that fail like horrendously bad failures on this platform. And you can actually get results really, really quickly. We've seen clients of ours get results within 2 weeks, not just the 30 days that I'm talking about here, like within 2 weeks, if you can get things moving. And it doesn't actually take that much. Like you will hear lots of marketers online talking about different strategies, different silver bullets that are out there. But the reality is marketing hasn't changed for a number of years. It's been going since the beginning of time. And what you've really got to understand is the basics. And that's what I'm going to take you back to today, is the fundamentals and the basics of how to get the best out of these platforms. And I have three specific objectives. This is the same for every workshop that I've ever run in the history. Is number one, to provide you with like as much advice and as guidance and information as I possibly can. At the end, I'm going to introduce you to how you can work with us. So we have our social selling LinkedIn Academy, which I'm going to be introducing you to. And then the big rule really is that there's no questions that are off limits with me. Like you can send me messages on LinkedIn, you can send me messages on any platform, and you can also ask anything in the Q&A section. Now, I just want to reiterate that point. If you ask questions in the chat box, it will get lost. The chat goes a little bit mental for me on this side with how many of you are here. But if you use the Q&A section, you should see it there to ask anything. If it's relevant at the time, I'll answer it. If it's not, I'll wait till the end towards the Q&A session. I hope that's cool. Now, just because I like to tailor make these presentations as much as I possibly can, what I'd like to know is a little bit about you. Now, depending on the answers to this, and the majority will depend on where I spend the most amount of time on this training. So what I'd love to know is what it is that you specifically do. Are you a consultant? Do you run a service-based business? If you do, what is it? Are you a salesperson? Are you a marketer? Like, what is it that you specifically do is question number one. And then question number two is, what are you looking to get out of today's session? What was it that drew you in? What was it that brought you here? And these two questions are really important to me because the feedback that I get will allow me to give the context that's going to make the most amount of sense to you. So Kim, we've got is a coach for emotional mastery. Evie does outsource FD work. Amazing. Keep them coming in. The more engaged you are with this, the better it gets. Leighton's a business development manager. Leighton, I've seen your name around recently. Good to see you. Sustainability consultant, Jonathan Mullen, good to see you here. Virtual assistant looking for LinkedIn updates. Amazing. Good work, Mel. Amazing. I'm a business-to-business marketer, always looking for more extra tips to sharpen the saw. Good stuff. Coach, trainer, facilitator, virtual assistant, create peer groups. Cool. Okay, good. So there's a good variety of people. Service-based businesses seem to be the biggest thing, with coach and consultant then coming up as a close second. That's brilliant. Now, in terms of what you're looking to get out of today, I'm sure those answers will keep coming in as I'm going through, but what it tends to be typically is a big focus around lead generation. So lots of people tend to know how to use LinkedIn. Let me know if this kind of relates to you a little bit. Put a yes in the comments if it does. But you'll be using LinkedIn. Like, you know how to put a post live. You'll know how to like build your network. You know how to send messages, but you're not really getting the results that you're looking for. That tends to be typically the sorts of people that come to us, where you're posting and you may not be getting the engagement that you're after, and it feels like a bit like a waste of time. You're sending messages that are just being ghosted. And your LinkedIn efforts, although let's be honest, it's a little bit of fun these days being on this platform with what goes on, but actually it gets quite deflating when you see other people, maybe competitors, getting business that you feel like you deserve. Now, that's what I really want to focus in on today, because the content that I've kind of pulled together hasn't been plucked from thin air. It's been pulled together from the number of conversations that myself and my business partners, Sam and Nick, have had with people over the last couple of years since we've been building Pipeline 44. And what we've noticed are some common patterns and common mistakes and things that just hold everyone back. Now, I'm not going to pull all of these 5 up and expect you to relate to them all. Normally, there's 1 or 2 of them that really stand out. And what I'd like you to think about as I bring these up are the ones that relate most directly to you. And as you do, just pop the number in the chat box for me, just so I can see whereabouts you're at. And the good thing with all of this is, no matter what these mistakes are that I bring up, I'm going to be covering them all today. So we're going to be going into detail on every single aspect. Now, number 1 reason why people fail on this platform is the stuff that they're putting out there, whether it's the words on their profile, the stuff in their content, the stuff on their landing pages, maybe the emails that they're sending. The message that connects all of that together is no longer relevant. So it doesn't actually stand out in an ever-growing marketplace. It may have worked a couple of years ago. However, now it tends to have faded. And if you've not changed it or adapted it, you'll be losing opportunity because of it. So that's number 1. Number 2 is the harsh one to admit sometimes, but it's normally because you're not really someone worth following in the first place. You're a LinkedIn user, but you don't really stand for anything. And what happens is you just end up blending in with everyone else. So to like really reiterate this point, this was me about 4 years ago. And I was looking at loads of people out there that are building audiences. And I didn't do it on LinkedIn at the time. I did it on Instagram. But I spotted an opportunity to really stand for a specific thing. And because of that, my audience grew really, really quickly. I was somebody that was worth following because of the education and the types of content that I was putting out there. So number 2 is quite a hard one to admit, but if you do fall into category number 2, it's quite an easy one to fix. And today we're going to solve that. Number 3 is quite simply, you don't have a big enough audience. So typical things that we hear are that you convert, if you can just get someone on the phone, you'll convert them 80 to 90 to 100% conversion rates. Like, you can just get them on the phone. But the problem is you just don't have enough phone calls booked. And that normally comes down to the fact that you don't have a big enough audience. And again, I'm going to be talking to you today about how we've gone about growing numerous accounts on this platform. Number 4 is the bit that I find the most sexy. You probably won't, but by the end of today, I hope that you will. It's the inside of your business, or inside of what it is that you do, you don't have an end-to-end process that connects somebody from not knowing who you are to actually wanting to buy from you. What you're relying on is then number 5. And it's like the hope that eventually someone will just slide into your inbox and say, I want to work with you. Now, inbound leads on this platform are the best thing, right? We all love them. We all want more of them. But the problem is that you've got no control over when they're going to happen. They're a nice to have. Now, to grow a business, you can't have that, right? You've got to have something where you know that the time that you're putting in is actually going to give you something on the other end as well. And so I know for our business that if I can spend half an hour to an hour on LinkedIn per day, now that's a lot for me. I don't tend to normally do it, but that would be what I would be aiming for, half an hour a day, that it's going to get me between 50 and 150 leads every single week, which would equate to 10 to 15 conversations, which will then give us the 8 to 12 customers every week that we're looking for. That sort of process is not done on the back of hope. It's done deliberately. And so the efforts that you're putting in, you actually get something out. So what I'd love to know, and it could be multiple. I know some of you have already answered on here, but just let me know, what are the numbers that stand out the most to you? Is it all of them? If so, put all. Is there one that really hits you, that makes it stand out? Like the biggest one for me normally is number 4. Like most people don't have a process in place. However, that now just brings in a load of 4s. Good stuff. Amazing. Now, the real big thing with this is actually being aware of it. So the reason why I wanted to shine a light on this stuff is actually it might not have been something you've really thought about. And therefore, you can't really do anything about it. Whereas today, you've taken the time out of your day to come to this session. And what I'm going to do is shine a light on the stuff that maybe you're not doing right now, but also the stuff that you are doing, which you shouldn't be. And then more importantly, what you should be doing is going to give you the best results. And the way I'm going to do that, thank you, by the way, for all your participation. I enjoy it. It's really good. Is by going through the framework that we teach inside of Pipeline 44, inside of our academy. Now, this is basically how we use marketing inside of our business, right? So step 1 is focusing in on clarity. You've got to get clear on your message. You've got to get clear on a number of things before you ever touch a social media platform, really. You need it done. I'm going to be taking you through clarity today. Then it's about the activity that you're doing on the platform. So it's about how do you qualify cold traffic? How do you get it? And then how do you qualify it? So connection. We're going to be talking about that today. And then we're also going to be talking about conversion. Now, content fits around the whole thing. I'm, of course, going to be talking to you a bit about content today. But the 3 key sections of this whole session around how do we get clear on 3 specific things that are going to make the biggest difference to the way that social works. The second part of it then is, what do you need to be doing on LinkedIn to get it to work for you? How do you get the traffic? How do you build an audience? And then part 3 is then going to be about how do you then convert it? So it's one thing having people in your network. How do you turn those into leads, and how do you turn them into money? Now, that's the flow of today. First of all, does that sound good? Give me a thumbs up emoji if that sounds good. And I hope it does, because otherwise it's probably best that you leave, because that's what we're going through. Now, before we kind of get rolling, I think it's quite important just to clarify that I guess I'm not just any Tom, Dick or Harry delivering a training on this. I've been using social for 5 years now since I started in business. I originally used it for my property company that I had. I then moved into an Instagram type business where I had an education company and an agency. And now Pipeline 44 came together with me, Sam and Nick. And like I say, at the bottom, really, like what we're looking to try and do for everyone is simplify what most people think is really complicated. And nothing that I'm going to teach you throughout today is rocket science. It is so simple. And if you hear anyone out there trying to throw jargon around at you, trying to convince you to spend thousands and thousands of pounds trying to learn this stuff, ignore them. It's really not that difficult. This stuff is really easy. Now, I think, again, LinkedIn as a platform is something which lots of people are using, especially over the last 2 to 3 years. Since COVID, actually, I started to use it a lot more since that hit. And I love it for a number of reasons. And especially this year, there are some real key reasons why I believe most people, most businesses should be using it. Number 1 is this ability to build your network. Now, the majority of you will know this. But if you're not building your network right now, this is that virtual kick up the backside to do it, because the biggest news flash of all of this is no other platform gives you the ability to proactively reach out and connect with someone. And then when they accept your connection request, you both start seeing each other's content. On Instagram, I can go and follow people. However, they don't need to follow me back. And therefore what happens is I end up seeing all their content, which I don't really want to see. Let's be really honest. I'm doing it to generate leads. I'm not doing it to make friends. It doesn't give me the opportunity to be able to build a network. So what LinkedIn gives you is this ability, unlike any other platform that I've seen. And as we all know, one of the biggest things to success on social is being known, right? It's having lots and lots of people know who you are and what you do and how good you are at doing it. What I've realized, speaking to loads and loads of people, is that most, especially you on here today, will probably be sitting there knowing that you're good at what you do. Otherwise, why are you doing it? Okay. Now, yes, we can improve in certain areas. We can always get better. But the conversations that I have is that, look, Chris, I know I'm great. However, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I just don't really have enough people to be able to speak to. And if you could just give me that, all my problems would be solved. Now, that's not as simple as it sounds, actually. What you find is, and this is the advice that I have to give, is that the conversations that you're most likely having, not to upset the apple cart too early on, but if you're converting at 80, 90, 100%, and you're not having enough people to speak to, if you turn the volume on, because of the conversations you'll be having are a very, very warm temperature, there may be word of mouth referrals, there may be recommendations. The trust that's built from the referral and the recommendation will increase your close rate because they already have like the know, like, and trust levels required to be able to make a transaction with you. So the data is a little bit falsified. When you start looking at colder traffic, you're 100% going to see a drop off in your conversion. What we're going to teach you is how do you keep that going and increasing over time? How do you build up know, like, and trust fast? How do you increase your touch points? How do you increase your dwell time so people feel like they know you before they jump on a call with you? Building a network is like the starting point for that. And what I really want to give you like the kick up is to really get out there and start doing it. Like I'm going to cover network building a little bit later on in a bit more detail, but this platform in 2023, I don't know how long it's going to be here. They've already started to reduce the network building limits, right? Like it used to be a lot higher than the 100 a week that you can do. I'm not even 100% sure whether they've reduced it even slightly recently because of the limits that I've got. However, you still need to be maxing them out. The second big reason is what we call in marketing organic reach. So this is the ability to get your content seen by people without spending any money on ads. Now, this will come as no shock if you're using multiple platforms right now, but the reach across every platform, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok is slightly reducing now. YouTube, even LinkedIn is reducing year on year. Now, that is quite simply because there's more users on the platform, there's more people posting. So reach is always going to be reducing. However, what I love about the way that this algorithm works, and you won't hear me talk about that word a lot today, because actually it doesn't really matter too much. However, to give you the context, the way that LinkedIn's algorithm works is that if somebody in your first degree connection, so if you're on LinkedIn, you'll see the first thing next to each person you're connecting with. If they react and engage with something, it will then show that person's connections, your content. And if then the second degree, those people that you aren't directly connected to, then engage, it then shows it to the third degree. So what I love about LinkedIn is that people that aren't even connected to you right now will see your content. And apart from potentially going viral on TikTok and Instagram, it's quite difficult to have that happen unless you're on a search-based platform. LinkedIn is so powerful about this right now, and people's usage time on it has gone up. Like I never, like to give you like the reality of this, I never really used to use LinkedIn at nighttime. Like I roll back a couple of years, LinkedIn was something that I used to check first thing in the morning and then never really look at it again. I'm actually curious, like who's currently using LinkedIn in the evenings at the moment? Who checks it like after dinner now? I never used to. Instagram and Facebook were the ones that I used to do, but I know lots and lots of people are. Like the yeses are piling in. I'm not on my own. This stuff is real, and therefore, like the time that gets spent on these platforms gives us opportunity. And if you are then somebody that's worth following, so if the content that you're putting out there is actually something that people want to follow or are interested in, the exposure that you can get is massive and it can happen really, really quickly. And when you get this consistently right, that's when inbound occurs. I don't know if Ian is on today, but I'll put this message on my LinkedIn because I thought it was interesting. So if you're not connected to me on LinkedIn already, just send me a connection request. I'm going to put a post on there of an inbound lead that I got literally about 10 minutes before I came on this morning. Ian has watched a couple of pieces of content. He's actually outreached my business partner, Nick, with a template which wasn't particularly great. Now, part of our approach is that Nick sends a message to Ian, driving him to one of my YouTube videos. And the YouTube video is like maybe one of these masterclasses. And what's happened is Ian has then gone on to book a call after messaging me on LinkedIn because of that video. Because the content is there and because of the way that LinkedIn is working, we've now got an inbound lead because we've done it consistently for long enough with the right process in place. So if you're not getting inbound right now, it's normally because of those things. The third key reason is my favorite. Like content, you all probably know that. Network building, you probably already know that as well. But the tools that LinkedIn gives you are what makes it so unique. So whether it's sales nav, whether it's newsletters, whether it's the thing that I'm going to talk to you about in a second, no other platform really gives you it in the same way. And most don't even know that these tools are there. God, most people don't even have no idea even how to use them. And one of the things that we're really big at Pipeline 44 is picking a campaign type for you. So if you're using LinkedIn as just something that you do every morning, so like a tick box exercise, that you log on, you send some connections, you post a bit of content, you may send some messages, and that's it. If you have that sort of approach, in my opinion, you'll be leaving huge amounts of opportunity on the table. So what we do, and I talked to you about this right at the end of today's session, so make sure you stay around. But once you pick a conversion campaign, so that's a process that you put in place in your business to build up touch points and dwell time to help give your prospect a mindset shift so they're in a position where they can and want to buy from you. Once you do that, these tools really allow you to really take advantage. And that third thing that I mentioned before, I said newsletters, I said sales nav as two tools. LinkedIn events are another tool. Now, LinkedIn events are something that we use like every single time we run a workshop or a webinar or anything like that, right? We've generated over 8,000 leads now. That's closer to 9,000 than it is 8,000. We will cross 9,000 today when I upload the Zoom registrations to our email list. And that's all just from inviting using LinkedIn events. And we used to run paid traffic for our business, right? And the cost per lead was around about, for a webinar registration, so not a show up, but a webinar registration, it was around £3 to £4 a lead. It kind of fluctuated in there, averaged about £3.70. And the reality is, to get 8,000 registrations on Zoom, it's probably going to have cost us about £33,000. Like, we get that for free using LinkedIn events just by doing some basic administration tasks. It's not that difficult. And this is where the opportunity lies. Like whether it's me or Sam running them, this was one that we ran back in 2021. We yet to beat this number on our mission to try and beat it. But just from being proactive on this platform, we were able to generate enough attention to get 1,000 people to declare interest in a LinkedIn event. Out of interest, before I move into clarity, there's normally two ways in which you come to these events. You either come through a LinkedIn event invitation or you receive an email. Now, what I'd love to know is, how did this event get your attention? Was it via a LinkedIn event or was it via an email? I'd just be generally fascinated to see the split, because I think email might be higher today, but let's have a look. So every single one of the first 10 was email. We're now getting a few LinkedIn events come through. No, it's going too quick. I can't. So most people are having both. My emails are annoying. I know. Apologies. Okay, so the majority is about a 70-30 split today. Like the last webinar that I ran, it was 50-50, like dead split. So it shows that the activity that we were doing, to show you like the analysis that we do, when it's about a 70-30 split, it should be now 50-50 because of like the way that these events are working right now. But if we're not getting the equal split, there's normally one or two reasons. Number one is that the emails have performed well. Or number two, which I think it is that we've not done the LinkedIn event activity to the best of our ability. And we will review that as we go. What we really want now, I don't know what the final numbers were of our LinkedIn event today, but we want about 500 to 600 people for our audience size to be able to do it. And so that sort of stuff is the stuff that you need to be looking at if you're looking at spending time on social. It doesn't take long, but 5 to 10 minutes looking at some data like that starts to reveal some amazing answers. So, right, before we get kicking, did that all make sense? Just give me a thumbs up if that all made sense. Before I move into clarity and how to find the right message, stay relevant, and position yourself as a true authority in your space, just let me know. It made sense to Jessica, to Tim, to Nadine. Good. There's only 3 of you here today, is there? Tracy. Okay, some hands being raised as well. Cool. Amazing stuff. All of them coming in. Fantastic. So, clarity. Let's get into it. Unfortunately, and I don't want to be like the bearer of bad news too much today. I feel like I've said unfortunately quite a lot. And I'm not doing that to upset you. I'm doing it because I want to be really honest and truthful about what's working. Most people using these platforms set themselves up to fail. So normally it's the opposite, right? When you're trying to get people to work with you, it's got to be about positivity and success. Actually, most people don't see results because they're just doing the basics wrong. And there's 3 specific things that people need to get clear on, which I'm going to touch upon today. And I'm going to show you why it's so important. Number 1 is your product/offer. So what you're selling or what you're positioning to sell on this platform isn't done in a way that people relate to or want. Number 2 is that you just don't have a following that's big enough to be able to do it. And therefore, you've not got the basic fundamentals in place that are going to allow your audience to grow. And then number 3 is kind of what I spoke about at the beginning. The message that you're putting out there is either irrelevant or boring. And these 3 things, the combination, make up clarity, right? This is what we talk about. I might make an abbreviation up of PAM there, I think. Product, audience, and message. PAM, works quite well, doesn't it? But product, audience, and message. And where I'm going to start today is the product and the offer. So most people, again, this is done from like lots and lots of calls that I've been on, even just over the last month. I think I've done over 30 calls so far this month already. And most, when I ask them what they're selling, they stumble or they fumble. They can't clearly communicate what it is that they're selling me. And I could be the biggest, hottest lead for them ever. However, if you can't clearly communicate what it is that you're selling and what it does, unfortunately, I'm going to go to someone else who can. That's just a fact. The second key point is that the product might be pretty good, but the way that you package it isn't standing out in a way that draws me in. And again, what happens is I end up buying from someone else. And what you need to identify, and this again is just doing a bit of market research, right? If you're not the best in the industry in terms of the top sales generating business in your industry, go and have a look at what other people are doing. Spend some time to do some market research and look at how are they packaging their offers. What are the big things that people are providing, but also what is it that they're missing? Where are the gaps in the marketplace? And I'm going to give you my examples. This is my personal example when I was running an Instagram 2-day course. So I used to do an Instagram training, which was end-to-end, 2 days, in-depth. Sam's actually there, my business partner, next to John in the far left-hand corner. And I remember teaching this thing and finding it really difficult to sell. Like I used to, because whether it was a dates issue, whether it was that it wasn't clearly communicating what it was, because don't get me wrong, people want to learn how to use Instagram, but do they really want to take 2 days out of their life to be able to do it? And I was finding it a real struggle. Like we were still generating sales. We were doing 5 to 6 grand a month. Like it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't what I wanted. And it felt like I was just a permanent salesperson, which is not what I wanted. Like my thing is teaching and creating and helping other people. That's where I get my kick. I don't want to be having to be hard flogging, which is what I felt like doing this Instagram 2-day masterclass. So the thing that I decided to do was to repackage it. Now, the big thing here is that the content was exactly the same. And I packaged it. This is the only photo that I could find of like how I positioned it. But I positioned it as, rather than an Instagram 2-day masterclass, into a how to gain 1,000 followers in 30 days challenge. Now, the price was exactly the same. There was no real date issues because it was online. And what happened was it was actually speaking the language of my ideal client. Now, does everyone see how that works? I mean, so simple, right? But going from a 2-day course, which could be quite generic, to something really objective-led of this is what we're going to be looking to do we see how that could cause a shift in the amount of people that want to buy it? Well, the truth was we went from February 2020, where we were doing 5 to 6 grand, to launching this in March, to in April doing 25 grand in sales. This is the difference repackaging things makes. And suddenly I had something which everyone wanted. Nobody else was doing it. And This is actually sitting there in your businesses right now. I'm sure of it, because this is what I spend. Franco, you're here today. I can see you. Something that we spoke about on our call. The way that we package things up is almost as important as all of the activity that we're doing online. And this is just one example of mine, right? This happened in the same way with a lady called Sasha Saville. Now, she was a virtual assistant. I know we had a virtual assistant on here today, something that might hit home with you as well. But we spent some time looking at what it was that made her business so special. What was the thing about her service that made it stand out? And we looked at why clients bought from her in the first place. And again, it was the same thing like me. Like, this was actually really close. This was back in 2020, I think. But we sat down and we looked at it and I went, look, if you can get similar results to what I've got, this will work for you. So let's switch it up. And we changed an hourly rate virtual assistant service to an executive assistant package. So it was a £750 to £1,500 a month retainer-based business, and there were numerous things that she could help you with. Now, just by switching that up again, and this is what we help people with in our academy every single time we speak with them, the packaging of their offers, just by doing it, she was able to get everything optimized, everything done. She started to be active online and offline, and she tripled her business in 4 weeks. The speed, I didn't even have to really do anything. Promotional plan and switch up the offer, those two things done in a half an hour call. And she managed to secure, that will be 45 grand secured in 2 weeks. Now, she ended up getting that deal, but 12-month contracts rather than hourly by hourly services where she could lose clients left, right, and center at any point. This is the stuff that we need to get right in your companies before you really start looking at LinkedIn. The second part to all of this is your audience. And this is something that we've worked with Fred really, really like for a long time about, actually for a few months on. And this is all about audience growth, because if you can't get interest in what it is that you're selling, you need to look at everything that you're doing. However, there's some things that you need to do to be able to test that. The reality is, I already said it 4 or 5 times today, most don't have a big enough audience and their network isn't growing fast enough to be able to build a sustainable pipeline. And this normally comes down to doing a couple of things. Network building will get you so far. You can only send 20 requests a day, really, right? That's before you're going to hit a limit. So the way to build a following is via your content. You've got to become somebody that people look at and they go, I want to keep revisiting your profile. And there's no shortcut to this. You've just got to get better at doing it. And when you then have that campaign approach and you start creating the content that's going to work, by the way, don't panic. I'm going to talk to you about this content shortly. When you've then got the campaign in place, which I'm going to talk to you about in conversion, it then allows you to start building up a pipeline. And what Fred did was just repackage the way that he was positioning himself online. He got a better LinkedIn event result than what we ever have. We got 1,081, I think, on that LinkedIn event image that I showed you. Fred got 1,308. By just changing the message and putting out something that people were interested in, bang, his audience appeared. And his following then kept growing from there. So what I want you to think about is the answer to this question. Like, why should anyone really follow you? What is it that you've got? And Eric, I'm going to talk to you about in a second. He's an old customer of ours, not old as in age, but previous in terms of X. Now, Eric is a person who is hugely credible. If you go and look at his profile, he is an incredible bloke and he's done some amazing things. And one of the things that we did when we first started to work with him, and he's gone on to do far like better things in terms of his content. He's transformed the way that he's been doing it recently. And I've got the examples to show you of that in a second. But you've got to take the time out to study what it is that you really do and really get to grips of the subject matter between what you're doing that's actually going to pull people in. So as an example, with Eric, if he's a CEO coach, it's okay, what do CEOs really need to know? What do CEOs really want to know? And then you've got to give both to be able to stand out. If you're in property like I was, I looked at it, I was like, right, what do people that are going to follow a property account want to know? Normally, how to get into it themselves and that you're credible enough to listen to. They're the two things. You've got to get that content out there. What you need to do is take a step back and go, right, what do people want and need from me? And then from that, just go onto YouTube, like go and type in your subject area on YouTube and just start looking at the top influencers in the space and go back to the beginning of their journeys and how they spoke about it and what they did. And what you'll notice are some gaps that you can exploit. And which is one of the best things that I advise people to do is just again, before you start plowing into this platform, wasting hours of your time, take a moment to reflect and go and do some research. Because when you do that, you then start to create the content that people are going to be really interested in. And this is what Eric did. Eric went from getting 5 to 10 reactions on LinkedIn to 1,600 and 279 comments because he posted content that his audience were interested in. Now, if you're not a CEO person like Eric is, and you go and copy this content, which is some of the advice that I hear out there, by the way, is to go and copy other people's content. If you go and do that, it's not going to work because your audiences aren't the same as theirs. So what you've got to look at, and again, it's just taking 5 minutes. We do this as part of our academy. We do it for people, go and do the research for them, but go and have a look and just see what your audience are engaging in. What's the message? What's the tone? What's the emotion? What's the visuals? What's the text? And when you do that, you can then start to put together your own content plan that's going to have the same performance levels as this, because this can happen in a few weeks when you get it right. I hope that all makes sense. But if you have any questions, please use the Q&A box. So that's audience. The third thing that you've got to get clear on is your message. So the reality is that I only have to open up, and I've done this on my YouTube channel before. Like I've done my latest video or 2 videos before. I've actually loaded up the LinkedIn newsfeed and critiqued content, like what's good about it and where people can improve. And the biggest thing that stands out is that most people are doing 2 things. Number one is that they're speaking the wrong language completely. So the example that I use is that when you've got your audience on one side and then you on the other, it's almost like you're speaking Spanish when they speak English. You're using headlines that they look at and they just don't care about and they scroll past. And most importantly, they don't understand it. So they're therefore never going to engage with it. So that's the number one. Number 2 is that they're posting technical information and educational content that no one cares about. Here's a big news flash here. Like Eric's stuff is quite unique. If you go and look at his information, it's very unique in the way that he presents it. Most people are regurgitating the same information that everyone's already said before. And the problem is that on LinkedIn, people aren't on here for information. If they're looking for information, they'll go to Google or YouTube. They'll go and search for it. It's got to take some really eye-opening, eye-catching, unique information content to get it trending. And there's a way to do it, but it takes a lot more time than some other content techniques that you can use. That next key point there is crucial, is that the content that you're putting out, you don't really care about it. You're doing it because you've just seen other people kind of talking about it. And therefore you think that if you do the same, you're going to get the same engagement levels. And what happens is that you don't show up as the best version of you or the most authentic version of you. You almost show up as the most boring version of you. And then you end up missing out on opportunities because of it. So one of the things that you really need to do, and this comes out more in the content section of today, is really start to think about who it is that you really want to be online and what it is your audience are going to relate to. And if you need help with that, it's where we can spend some time. And this is something that we worked with Jamie about. And this is a great example because when we started working with Jamie, who's in the property space, there were hundreds of property educators out there, from one-man bands to huge organizations, right? There were hundreds of them. And for Jamie just to be another property educator, it just would have blended in and it would have just like completely died a slow death. So what we needed to look at was what was Jamie's unfair advantage, is the task that you can take away today to go and do. Jamie is probably one of the most knowledgeable people in property that I've met. Every strategy, he's done multi-million pounds worth of portfolios. Like he's a great teacher as well. And when we did the analysis on his account, what we noticed was that there were lots of people doing education, but not to the depth that he was, and not in the way that he could explain it. So we set out to create content that tapped into his strengths. And from that, we worked out what he had to offer. Like the biggest difference maker to him was that there was one strategy that he did better than everyone else. He was just the best out there at doing it. And then from there, we used LinkedIn and YouTube to be able to then spike his brand through so he could launch his business. And the education business that he went on to do, because of the exploitations of the content that he put out there, because it completely took off. He grew a YouTube following of 50,000 subscribers in just under a year. He's on about 80,000 now. It completely went mental. he's ended up doing, I think, about £5 or £6 million in the first year and a bit of launching it. It's been absolutely insane. But the thing that I want to talk about here is the message, because there's one thing going out there and creating content, but if it's not got your unique voice behind it, the voice that you really believe in, tapping into your own unfair advantages, then unfortunately you're going to fall behind. And to summarize it all, what you need is complete clarity on all those three things before you even really touch LinkedIn. And clarity sessions are something that we do sell to the public for £2,500. They're the stuff that we did with Jamie, and these are some of the people that have had them in the past. What we spend time doing is going through all of that and creating you that promotional plan. And what I'm going to do is actually give a few people a taster of that for free. So at the end of today, I'm going to be giving you a link to be able to book in a call. It's a QR code that you can use. And the things that we'll discuss on that call are going to be your message, the product and offer, and the way that you're positioning yourself online. And if you want one of those calls, just put call in the chat, and I'll make sure that you get a message if you have to leave before the end of today to be able to get one in. But those three key things there are the things that are going to make the biggest difference to the way that your LinkedIn and social activity is working. So thank you very much. We'll get in contact with all of you as you come through. So to finish the clarity section off, there are some key things. I'm not going to read them all out to you. They're there for you to be able to take a picture of. But the biggest one is that last point. It's being open to change, okay? Because if you keep the same message, and I'm going to use Jamie as an example here, if Jamie was still saying the same things in the same way that he was a year and a half ago when we first started to work together, his brand would have just slowly diminished. You've got to change it up. You've got to stay relevant. You've got to find different ways of saying the same thing. And this is where having support and people around you to give you those ideas is really, really important. And that is the biggest tip for clarity, really, is being adaptable and sticking at it long enough to be able to know when to change, but then changing quickly when you need to. Now, before I go into part two, has that been useful? Has it made sense? Mainly an excuse so I can take a drink, I'll be really honest. Brilliant, good stuff. Okay, how are we doing for time? We're doing well, good stuff. So with connection, this is all about your own LinkedIn activity and what you're doing, okay? There are two things that you really need to do when it comes to any social media platform, not just LinkedIn. The first one is build an audience, okay? Touched on that in clarity. We're going to go into it in more detail now. And then the second thing is to control it. So you can't do one without the other. If you do miss one of these, you'll be relying on hope. You remove hope from it and guarantee results by having both. And I'm going to start with build. Now, when it comes to building an audience, there are three things that you can do on this platform. Number one is network build. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because it's quite self-explanatory. But I've gone from 5,000 connections to 14,000 in a year by just posting content every day and maxing out my connection limits. Right? That's pretty much it. There are some other things that you can do. Like I have 40,000 Instagram followers, most a bit lower than that, but let's round up. Let's be one of those people. And what I've been doing is driving people from Instagram to LinkedIn, right? Telling them that it's there, getting them over. Been doing the same thing on LinkedIn, driving people to YouTube, and YouTube driving people to LinkedIn. Like the audiences that you build on other socials, you want them following you on every single platform. The reason why, you build up the amount of touch points and you build out the amount of time that they watch you, so the know, like, and trust then compounds over time to the point where you're going to have more and more people wanting to work with you. So if you're not doing this and directing people to your other socials, then this is the time to do it. This stuff isn't difficult. You can use LinkedIn groups. You can get into the comment section of other people's content and use that to be able to get it. One of the biggest tips that I can give you is try to only connect with active members. So one of the things that I take my time to do when I'm network building, it takes about 20 to 30 seconds to do it, but it's just to quickly click into each of the profiles that I'm looking to connect with and just see if they've been active in the last 2 weeks. If they haven't engaged in anything, I tend to ignore them. Because they're not really going to be on the platform to do the things that I want them to do, which is engage and allow my overall impressions to grow. That's network building. The second is content. Now, with content, it's really important that information is not the way to win on this platform. What you need to do is figure out something that you stand for. And me and Sam were talking about this with our team in a 2-day session at Leeds that we had only a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But one of the things that you've got to do if you want to become a brand that somebody wants to follow is really stand for something, almost champion something. Like, really have the beliefs around certain areas of things that you want to talk about. So like I did a post, when was it? A few days ago. It was quite ironic, really, going off on a tangent here, and I really shouldn't be. But I did a post about bullying around, I think it was 3 or 4 days ago. It was just before the weekend. And it was something that affected me when I was growing up, right? And I'm not going to go into the story of it. The post is there for you to read. But then that post is something that I like, was really meaningful to me. It performed really well. The impressions went through the roof. And it's because it's something that I stand for. Like, I want to prevent it. I want to help it. And it was really weird because then on Saturday or Sunday, we were walking through town and there's the anti-bullying people that are out there on the street. And I ended up getting the wristband for it. But I just thought it was really weird that when you start talking about something, then something else approaches you. But I've then gone on to post about that and how that's happened. And I know that that's going to end up performing well as well. I think it goes live tomorrow or the day after it's scheduled for. But like, it's because the things that I'm talking about are the things that are happening to me in everyday life, right? This is stuff that I believe in. So the task that I want to set you with your content is to go back and look at the last 10 to 15 posts that you've done and go, right, is that post that I put out there something that I really believe in, something that I'm really connected to, something that I'm really passionate about? Or is it just something that I've done because I needed to put something out there? And when you start to look into this, you can start to allow yourself to become a better creator because you're talking about the stuff that other people also relate to. The final bit with content really is not just relying on your own profile to succeed. One of the things that I talked to you about I think it's on one of the upcoming slides, is about how I've got myself out there. So offline, online, my whole kind of focus point is to be the person that when you open up your social media platforms, I'm the face that you see. Now, I have that as part of my approach because I know that if you keep seeing me over and over and over again, you're then going to start to remember what it is that I do. And then the moment that you realize that you need help with the stuff that we can help you with, you're going to remember me first above anyone else that's out there. And I've done that by getting exposure in multiple different places. So I've had podcast interviews that I've been on. I've gone and spoken on stages. I've gone and networked. I've been on other people's email lists. And again, these are little shortcuts that you can do just by calling in favors. And at the end of the day, we all had to start from one place, right? We all have to start somewhere. And the more content that you put out there that's great, the real powerful stuff that you really believe in, the faster your overall account's going to grow. And when you do this right, you can see from Donna's example here, 7,000 impressions, just by amending a headline, I think that one was, just by speaking the language of the post that she was putting out there to the audience that's visible. Zoe's another person that's done it in terms of the post that she put out there that ended up getting over 150,000 impressions because it's something that she believes in. It's something that she's connected to. It's something that she does. And from that, when you start putting out the content that's like the most authentic version of you that other people in your audience also connect with, that's where the inbound leads are going to come from. And this was the same thing that Sam did there. And again, you can, if you've got the replay of this, you can pause this and read, right? Or you can screenshot this slide if you want to see it now. But the post that Sam put out there with the image, you can't see the image, but she put the process map that we use in our company that you're going to see later on today. Just by putting that out there, that inbound lead came in 2 hours later. Like, when you start talking the right language with the right message, with the right level of conviction, that's where the business is going to start coming in. And every single day we get this in our academy where it works. So my big message to you right now is that you need to start getting the best version of you out there. I utilize YouTube. By the way, let me know, have we got anybody that's subscribed to my YouTube channel here? Just put YouTube if you are. I'd just love to know how many people are watching YouTube at this current point in time of my stuff. But like, credibility is something that I use YouTube for. I don't have the biggest YouTube following. If you're not subscribed to me, I'd be really grateful if you could, because the bigger we can get that, the further the content's going to travel. It'd be a massive, like, I'd be so appreciative and grateful of it. But like we use it as a credibility builder, like a dwell time builder. We put out the best content that we possibly can, knowing that people need this information and knowing that it might get to the point where people watch enough of it and they go, do you know what? I want to work with those people. If you're not using YouTube, we will help you get into it because it's so important. Over the last 2 years, I counted them up. I've done over 250 presentations online and offline. That's exposure to people's audiences, and it's absolutely critical. We teach people how to present and do these sorts of presentations when you work with us, right? Like this stuff is important so you get the right level of exposure. I've spoken in front of over 25,000 people, not all in once, but over the last couple of years. And it all happened because I just simply made a commitment to get myself out there, to do the stuff that made me feel uncomfortable. I hated the thought of public speaking, but I went out there and trained and I learned it, and I went out there and did it enough times where now I feel comfortable doing it. But doing that is what positions me above everyone else that's out there doing the same thing. So again, what I want to challenge you to do is make the same commitment that I did. And then when you do that, you've then got stuff that you can talk about. And people always ask me, like, how back when you had your property business, how did you raise money? Like, how did you do it? You didn't have any yourself. How did you do it? Well, I did it because I proved to people that we could make them money. The content that we were putting out there, you can see, is all about demonstrating credibility. The numbers in that caption, the 5 service houses, the £11,500 worth of revenue. In this one, the depth of information that we were providing with the visuals of the multiple properties that we had. In this one, the £600 per month profit that we were making. This stuff is what people are drawn to. What you need to think about are what are the things that your audience needs to see to be able to realize that you're someone that they need to work with. And when you do that, the content that you're creating becomes easier. The third thing, I'm not going to spend too much time on it because it's really easy, but it's engagement. If you're not spending time commenting on people's content right now, you don't need to do hours of it like some people say. I just spend 2 to 3 minutes a day just engaging on some people that I believe are in my target market right now, that are in our pipeline. I just go and leave some comments. And you get what you put in with this, right? Leaving comments can be really boring and tedious, but what is the one thing that we all want when we post? We want someone to comment. And you know what? When someone does comment, we go straight in and we see their name. We go, they've left a comment. Let me respond. And you engage in conversation. You don't have that in messages. Most people ghost messages. They don't want a direct message, but a comment is completely fine. Everyone see that. Like the commenting is something where it's almost like a shortcut. And if you can use it to your advantage, you don't need to do lots of it, just 5 to 10 minutes a day at the max, and start doing it tactically. Look at the people that have engaged, or maybe in your email list, or people that have booked a call in with you and maybe not shown up. Put some content out there, go and engage in it, because what you're going to do is put yourself back to the forefront of their minds, which is what you need to do. And getting that whole combination right is where things really start to change. And a real key example of this is a gentleman called Matt Fletcher. Now, Matt didn't work directly with me, he worked with Sam. And one of the things that was really important for Matt was to learn how LinkedIn really worked, okay? And when he went on to one of Sam's masterclasses, he then started working with her directly. The education around what Sam taught across those days ended up his profile just completely blowing up. Like he's had more views than what I've ever got on a piece of content. And this is where I think the opportunity lies, because I believe the biggest difference with what Matt did compared to what he was doing before, compared to what he does now, is that the stuff that he puts now is the stuff that he's really connected to, the stuff that he really believes in. And most people looking at what he does will probably think that it's quite boring. Actually, what he's only brought it to life. And because he's connected with people, he's built his network up with people that are interested in this stuff. It then sent the profile views through the roof. And when profile views go through the roof, when you've got the right process in place, it's when you then start to receive the results like this. 18 new customers he's put in the email that he sent to Sam here. All have come through LinkedIn. Really surprised to see the profile views thing that he sent through. And the first peak was the post that had over 129,000 views. When you start doing this over and over again, right, that's almost like the beginning, because then again, you can see this was a few months later, if not a year later. The time frame doesn't matter too much here, but you can see the result. Like their words, we've seen you on LinkedIn. It's a 3-year contract worth £1.2 million from just starting to use LinkedIn correctly. None of this stuff that I've spoken to you about today, I don't believe has been rocket science, right? But it's just small little changes that you need to make that you may not know how to make right now. But when you do, that's when all of this starts to click into gear. And building an audience is really important. It's one of the most fundamental parts. And I hope there I've shared some insight into the activity that you need to be doing. The second part to this is control. So there's one thing having an audience on LinkedIn. There's another thing being able to control it. And this comes back to that overall framework, right? This is how you take people off of LinkedIn and into a place where you have the ability to communicate to them. Now, the way that we do this is via prospecting. So most people, when they prospect, send messages that are trying to initiate conversation that people, unfortunately, just don't want to have on this platform. There are more spam messages than ever before. It's very difficult to get someone's attention. So what you need is simply a message that attracts the right people closer towards you. And the questions that you need to ask, or the question is, what is it that you can provide in a message that is going to increase touch points and dwell time? The two things that equal opportunity when you get them right. For us, in our process that we put out, we have 4 big pieces of value that we provide before a sale is made. And you're going to see that process shortly. But the power of social media lies within the size of your email list. So if you haven't got one right now, start building one. And if you have got one right now, start focusing on the number. Because this sort of message here, although don't get me wrong, like it isn't the most amazing thing in the world. It's not like Shakespeare in the way that it's written. But what it does do is really focus in, not on starting a conversation, but trying to move people off of the platform to the place where I can earn more time with them. So YouTube videos are a big thing. Ian, the inbound lead that I mentioned to you right at the beginning, watched a YouTube video, then came back to LinkedIn. Right? We took them off platform and back into it. The content guide that we provide, 100 content ideas, is a lead magnet. We provide that in exchange for an email address. This webinar today, you had to put your email address in to be able to attend. We're now building an audience off of LinkedIn as well as on it. And therefore, what we're able to do is being able to promote directly. When you get that right, you can then start to really take a grab hold of what it is that you're doing and start to pull everything into place so you can start making sure that the activity that you're putting into these platforms is actually worthwhile. So some top tips for connection. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. It's there for you just to summarize what we've spoken about. The thing that I want to emphasize in this one is what we call the emotions wheel. So this is in the content section, really. One of the things that most people get wrong is headlines in content. A little hack for you, go onto Google and search for the emotions wheel. Pick it up, and in your headline of any future post that you do, pick an emotion on the outside of that wheel and get it into your headline. An example like what we have is really, really simple. Rather than, I had some conversations with my staff members today, pick an emotion. It could be disgust. I'm disgusted with my staff conversations today. Putting the emotion to the forefront is what then drives the impressions through. Little tip for you. Right, part 3. Does that all make sense? Give me a yes if it makes sense. Give me a yes if it's been helpful to you. Good stuff. People are still here. Fantastic. Okay, let's get into it. Conversion, and then we're out. My job today, I think you've probably got this already. It's not really to make you like me, okay? It's to tell you the truth. And what I want to do today is really focus in on how you can stop wasting so much time on this platform, right? How you can stop creating content that no one's engaging with, how you can stop running lives that no one shows up to, how you can stop sending messages that get 0 responses, how you can stop getting comments. Let me know if you've ever received this comment, by the way, in any way, shape or form that you want to in the chat box, but where you get comments that you're so good at what you do. Absolutely love that. But then the person doesn't go on to buy anything. How frustrating it is. This used to drive me insane with my Instagram course, the 2-day course that I said all the time. It's like, you're absolutely fantastic, but I'm just going to go away and give it a go on my own and come back to you. It happens literally all the time. And that's because you don't have a process in place. You don't have the step-by-step journey that someone needs to go on, and more importantly, wants to go on to the point where you've got enough scarcity and enough urgency for them to make the buying decision with you. People, I have zero doubt, all of you that are still on here today, if you're on here right now, it means that normally you want to make a change, right? But you're most likely working hard, but I 100% guarantee that when we speak on the phone, I'm going to highlight to you where you're putting your time and how you're just putting it in the wrong places. People spending all of the time, like this was a photo of Nick's inbox the other day. Like the amount of pointless messages that are in here that are never going to get read. Not the amazing, the hilarious ones are, can I just get 5 minutes of your time? Can you imagine if we gave 5 minutes of our time to every message that we received on LinkedIn? Why are people sending this message? It's literally never going to happen. But it's things like this that people just aren't aware of sometimes. And when I speak with people about it, it comes down to really focus in on the fact that they just don't have a process in place. And you can take a screenshot of this, right? It's there for you. This isn't there to overwhelm. It is there to just show you like what you need to really get this working, why this whole process works. Like you are in what we would call an event campaign right now, right? So whether you've come from our email list, which you can see here, email list, or you come from a LinkedIn event, which you can see at the bottom here, what we're looking to do is drive all the connection activity either into our email list or either into a LinkedIn event. You've all said today that you've come from email or event. This campaign will then drive a certain number of you through to book a call with me. And from that, we will either work together or we won't. Those of you that don't book a call, you may end up watching more content and recommending and referring if it's been any good or not. When you have one of these in place, everything becomes easier. And the best way to explain it is to just show you. So Donna is someone that we've worked with for around about 4 months now. She's a leadership coach and consultant, but she works only with in-house lawyers. And what she had was elements of this process in place. She'd worked with other marketing people before. You can't imagine how many times I've heard people say, I've tried this with other marketing people before, and it's because they just didn't do it right. Like, this isn't difficult. It's just that sometimes you just need the simple stuff in place before you see the results. And what I did was just run an audit. And what we did was we identified the gaps. So we did some gap analysis. We do this on a call. I'll do this with all of you on your calls that you book. And what we noticed was that she was using LinkedIn regularly, just wasn't talking the right language. She didn't have a conversion piece of content in place. So an event or an audit or a one-to-one call is a conversion piece of content that people want to go onto. She didn't have that, so we had to get that in place. She was focusing on selling on LinkedIn rather than using it as a traffic source. She wasn't showing off how great she was. She wasn't getting consistent results. And the biggest one was she had no idea of what was working and what isn't. When you're relying on hope that LinkedIn's going to give you some leads, you have no idea of what's working and what isn't. What this process gives you is the data that backs up the decisions that you make. So what we did was, and we do this with every Academy member, is we mapped out a 6-week plan. And the 6-week plan is what you then work through to get this process in place. What Donna had in place was those orange boxes. She had a profile, she was network building, she was messaging, she was putting some content out, she had an email magnet. It takes 3 weeks to get this into place. We then put all of the green boxes in place. Takes around about an hour to 2 hours a week to be able to do that within the 3 weeks, and you're good to go. And this is basically what we need to do with you. And when we did that with Donna, you can see we reviewed her presentations, we reviewed her content, we reviewed her messages, all a part of what we do. We crafted a message that helped us stand out. We created the conversion piece of content alongside her, so she wasn't left on her own to do it. We did it with her. We drafted the email campaign, so we helped to write those. We created the high-value lead magnet. And we basically said to her, stop doing everything else and just commit to this for the next 6 weeks. That's all you need to do. Commit to this for 6 weeks and it will just fall into place for you. And just as a result of following that plan, she committed and she did it. It was all she did, just follow the steps, send it in to us at every step, and we will tell you if you're right or wrong. She ended up building a converting process that she can repeat. Her first workshop generated just over 6 grand in sales. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like literally life-changing, but from just 3 hours of work, 6 grand, it's not bad. And has now set the date for a next workshop. Now, that workshop's already been ran now. I've got the results for you for that as well. But the big thing is that when you run one of these, we can then review them. So we watch every workshop back that anyone that sends it in our academy, and we then critique it. So we give you notes back of what you've done well and where you can improve. We did that for Donna. And what she had was 80 people register, 33 people attend. So not huge. But with that, she got the 2 sales coming through. And this is where it all starts to kick into gear, because then when she ran it again and she made the changes, you can see what the biggest thing was that she didn't have any scarcity in it. So she's put scarcity there. She meant scarcity. And what she did was she changed a few things. And then from that, 5 spaces were booked out before it finished straight away. And this is just another example, right? This is my message template, so you can copy it if you want it. I send a message out to a lady. She ignores it for a month, right? I send then my follow-up message, driving people to the YouTube video. Again, it gets ignored. I then, a month later, get a message saying, can you tell me a little bit more about the Social Selling Academy? From that, you can see inbound lead. What I then did was get straight onto a phone call, have the conversation, see if it's worthwhile. Following that, I then redirect, as you can read there, to the free training. Why spend all my time trying to explain what we do? Go and watch a workshop like this. It clearly explains it. And then from there, if you're interested, then you can buy. From that point, we'd done the call, we'd qualified, she was right, she watched the webinar, bang, and she'd signed up. I didn't have to do anything apart from spend 10 minutes on a phone call with her. Now, this process works because the process is in place and it's just tested and proven. This isn't just a one-off. It happens all the time, like from Tony in the top right corner to Ashley Cannon in the top left to Lynn in the bottom left. It's here and it happens time and time again. Lorna, 85 registered, 26 turn up, 7 break calls throughs booked, 2 clients signed up, paid. Like, this is the stuff that we do. And this is just a screenshot of like our Monday session. So every Monday we jump on as a group at 12 o'clock and we talk through what's working well and where we can improve. I normally deliver some content and we move forward from that. But when you get that process in place and you can choose a campaign that's going to work for you, this is where it all clicks into gear. So again, some top tips for you to screenshot. My biggest one is, actually, I'm going to give you 2. Number 1 is don't guess your way to success. If you're going to keep guessing, you're just going to waste too much time. Have a process in place that's going to work. And number 2, realize that people aren't on LinkedIn to buy things. They're on there for 2 reasons. Number 1, because they want to generate leads for themselves. Or number 2, because they're bored. If you know those 2 things, you can then start playing the game properly. To start generating a consistent flow of leads into your business, you don't need to be posting a lot, right? All you need in place is a process that's going to convert, and then the knowledge to be able to build an audience at speed. You get those 2 things in place, and from there, you'll see the pipeline that you're wanting to build. I have 0 doubts about how passionate you are. You've spent an hour today listening to me talk. You just need these things in place to get it working. And I hope I've given you some insight into kind of how we work and what we do. I hope I've not waffled. I'm normally meant to be like really to the point on all this stuff, and I hope it's been clear. And what I want to do is just spend, for those of you that are interested, that 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just around how you can work with it, if kind of what I've spoken to you about has related a little bit. The Social Selling Academy, let me know, by the way, is that being useful today? Is that session being good? If so, give me a thumbs up. We've still got the Q&A section at the end to come. But as you're doing that, what I want to talk to you about is the Social Selling Academy and how it works. But first of all, you can put your wallets and your purses away. This isn't something that you're going to buy right now. We're going to have that phone conversation and see if it's right for you. But this is something that I mentioned that me and Sam used to run in person. We used to do in training, like things like this all the time. But what we've basically done is pull together all the stuff that we used to train internally and all the stuff that we've done over the last couple of years, and built out roadmaps for people to follow. It's to me the easiest way to learn. And what we do inside of the academy is take you through how to create that product. So clarity, we take you through clarity. You spend time talking to me and we get clear on the clarity section. We then will get your message right. So you're not left trying to work out what your message needs to be. We're going to, following an exercise, tell you what your message needs to be. We're then going to help you pick a campaign type that's going to be best for you. So there's 7 different campaign types that you're going to see in a second. And then each campaign type has a step-by-step process for you to put in place. We're then going to show you how to build the audience and then how to nurture that through. So how to take control of it, kind of like we do all the time, right? It's just what we're doing day to day. This is that framework that we teach. So we're going to take you through all of those stages. And again, it's just video by video, step by step. The right campaign type is really important. What we normally push people towards is more of a conversion campaign type, so an event or an added value. Now, you may be one of the ones on the left, but when we have the conversation, I'll be able to identify. So on our clarity call, on that one-to-one call that we're going to book in, we will talk through your campaign type. Now, what we're going to do then is design your process out. Each of your processes will be slightly different. And with each of your processes, you then get your plan. Your plan has videos attached to it, which you work through, and then you send through to me and the team for us to review for you and tell you whether you've got it right or you've got it wrong. At every step, I need to reiterate it. You're not left guessing at any point. You send it through to us and we will then, we're not coaches, okay? So we're not going to ask you questions that thinking that you know the answers to them. We're more consultants, I guess. Like, we're going to tell you what we believe is right and where you can improve. That's what we do. We'll get straight to the point on it as quickly as possible. And what we're going to teach you is how you can build an audience, generate attention, turn it into clients. And there's loads of people that have been through this. All you have to look is online for all of the reviews that we've got on our program. But the results that we're getting are daily in terms of it. And I'm not going to sit here and read them to you, but one of the things that we're going to be is really honest with you. We don't hold back. We're very blunt in what we do. And it's how we get the results at the speed that we do. Okay, so Tony is one example, came to us, has got his webinars going now, 47. So the numbers were low, right? Offered 10 complimentary coaching calls, two were taken. And again, this is just all about then consistency of delivering it. So inside of the Academy package, you're going to work with us for 12 months and basically go through the 30 and 60-day roadmaps. You get personalized feedback every step of the way. And it's not just on your LinkedIn work. It's on your sales process, your offers, your content, your profiles, your messaging, your webinars, your emails, all of it. We will review it all and give you feedback. You also get 12 months access to our exclusive Slack channel. So we use Slack for accountability and questions. We also do personalized profile and content audits to make sure you're on the right track. We recommend you kind of have these every quarter. So you send through your profile and you send through your content, and we then look at it and we go, right, this is where you need to improve and change now to make sure that you're staying relevant. Every week we do a live group session, like I mentioned before. It's at 12 o'clock and we will deliver some content and then have conversations. You get access to all of our templates. This is what shortcuts it all. What we're going to give you are my presentation documents, the emails that we send, our best performing content pieces. We're going to give you it all so you can just adapt it and use it. And then every 2 weeks, we run a challenge where you can win some great prizes. And those could be one-to-one hours with me, could be one-to-one hours with Sam, it could be business reviews with Nick. But inside of that, we're going to give you all of it for just £150 a month. So we break it all down over the 12 months, £150 a month. I think it's very fair. It's accountability. It's the information. It's everything that you need to get this working. What I want to reiterate is just the amount of support that you get, because people do underestimate it. We've got over 250 people in here now, and every day we're sharing ideas, education, and tips. And literally, even if you get stuck one day and you don't know what to do, all you've got to message is, Chris, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. And we will jump in, find out where you are in the process, and we'll get you back on track. The reason we do it is because we're just fed up with people saying that these platforms don't work. They 100% do. And all you need to do is commit to making it work and just following a process. It's literally it. And if you do that, it will work for you. And if you go and check out my LinkedIn profile, there's loads of reviews on here. Like, it's literally everywhere in terms of what people say about us. Like, we don't need to sit here and read it out. You just need to go and look for it if you want to read them. Like, the biggest one that I love is what Don has said, is literally like, simply put, just do what we say. And if you do it, you'll have control of your business rather than it controlling you, and the pipeline will then start to grow. So with that being said, all you need to do is grab out your phones. If you want one of those strategy calls, those calls that I mentioned before, we'll discuss everything that we've spoken about today, is just get your cameras out, hover it over that QR code, and it should take you through to a Calendly booking link. Then someone just make sure that that is working okay for me. Otherwise, the link is pipeline44.com/apply. See if that's working okay. My phone's in airplane mode, so it definitely won't work for me. But just let me know in the chat if that's working all okay. And there's 15 of them. You'll see the slots that are available. Pick a time that works for you. If there's not a time available, drop me a message on LinkedIn. we can sort it out. It's not a problem. There's 15 of them. There's more than 15 of you on it today. It might go quite quick, but all you got to do is fill out the questions, try to answer them with the information that we need, because it helps me prepare for that call. I'm not going to turn up not knowing anything. I need to know your LinkedIn account, I need to know your website, I need to know what you're struggling with, and I'll help you and I'll consult with you on there. And from there that we work. So the link is, let me put the link in here for you, Sarah, so you've got it. Let me change that to everyone. HTTPS pipeline44.com/apply. I hope that works. Let me know if that works, so you've got it. But yeah, pipeline44.com/apply. It's quite easy to remember, I hope. So that's there for you. What I'm going to go through now, I'm going to leave that up there for you, is the Q&A section, okay? So some of you have answered in here, which is fine. We'll get rid of that. Luxury price. Yasmin, good to see you. Email, good. Kim, after the 12 months, it just becomes a monthly rolling thing. So yeah, just drop us a message. Let's get you re-engaged with it. Of course, not a problem at all. I've actually not had any questions, so I must have answered them. But if you've got questions, use the Q&A section. I'll stay on for another couple of minutes, but I kind of am really hope that that's giving you some insight into what we're about at Pipeline 44. Has that been worth your time, I guess, is my biggest thing. Let me know, because otherwise I need to change these up a bit. One of the things that I wanted to get out of today was kind of give you my thoughts and what we're constantly talking about behind the scenes at our company, and how we're looking at making the biggest difference, I guess. And so, like, I really hope that has ticked the box. Claire, am I posting as myself and my company? I post personally on my own profile. That's where you'll get the best bang for your buck. But company pages, they do play their part as well. Franco, good stuff. I'm looking forward to speaking to you soon as well. Katie, thanks. Good work. Good. Sandra, fantastic. Sarah as well. Mark, do we have a WhatsApp? I know we have Slack. That's the way that we communicate. But yeah, feel free to book a call and we can have a conversation around that as well. Right. Okay. I believe that's everything. I hope that's been helpful. Thank you so much for your time. If you're not connected with me on LinkedIn already, please go and connect with me. I look forward to seeing you all on the newsfeed. And again, I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.